comedy, classics, and characters. It's as the name suggests. It's comedy at its best with some of the most incredibly hilarious stories you'll ever hear. It's classic moments in gospel music told by those we lovingly call the characters of Southern gospel music. Characters such as Eldridge Fox of the Kingsmen, Rex Nealon of the Rex Nealon Singers, Wendy Bagwell, Glenn Payne and George Yantz of the Cathedral Quartet, J.D. Sumner, Ben and Brock Spear, Les Beasley of the Florida Boys, J. Cass, James Blackwood, and Herman Harper, formerly of the Oak Ridge Boys. It's comedy, it's classics, and it's told by the characters of Southern gospel music. Let's listen in as Ben Spear tells a very funny story about his brother Brock, one time when Brock forgot the words to a very classic song.
I believe it was Austin, Texas we were in with the Oak Ridge Boys, the old Oak Ridge Boys, Willie Wynn, Smitty Gatlin, Herman Harper, and Brock was going to close the program with the Lord's Prayer. So we got up there and he sang the first line, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Give us this day our daily bread. So I'm playing the piano, see, and I turn around here away from the audience and I say, lead us not into temptation. And he said, lead us not into temptation. and then I turn back and say, well, I'm lost now too. And Brock says, huh? Well, here was Smitty Gatlin in the back of the auditorium.
Dying.
Doubling over, I mean in the floor laughing. And they began to rib Brock about it afterwards, and Brock said, well, if anybody else in the world had written that song, I could have just improvised and gone ahead and made up the words.
Ben was talking a few moments ago about Brock forgetting words. I had the opportunity one time, well, several times, to ride with J.D. and the Stamps many years ago. And the first date was in Alma, Arkansas. And J.D. was pretty popular over there. And he first let the quartet go out and they'd sing.
Where was that?
You don't back. That again.
Too late, it's not there anymore.
The town's gone, J.D.
And so the audience was just drinking every pitch and every word and just right on the edge of their seat. And when J.D. said,
means like they were eating it up.
he was ever more selling, you know. You're right. So it came to the part where he had the recitation. And everything got real quiet. And I was the only one in there was just dying to laugh. And I was right in the middle of the auditorium. And J.D. said, the Lord is my... Came back and said, the Lord is my... By this time I was already sitting down just dying laughing, and everybody else was crying. He said, the Lord is my... And he just got up, walked out right in front of all the audience, went and got in the bus and stayed there. He did not come back to the evening.
While we were on J.D., we could be here for a while. Yeah, we could be here all day. There's nobody in the world like J.D. Sumner, everybody knows it. But years ago in Dayton, Ohio, this is many years ago, I don't know why, but J.D. came off stage and I met him in the hall. We was going on or been on something. I said, J.D., I've been telling people all over the country that there ain't nobody I hadn't rather hear sing than you. And J.D. misunderstood me, you see. So big old tears come in his eyes. And he laid his arm around my shoulder and he said, appreciate it, buddy. It must have been 3 or 4 months later when J.D. was somewhere else. Now I met JD again. I said, JD, I'm still telling people all across the country that there ain't nobody I hadn't rather hear sing than you. And JD said, wait just a minute. Run that by me. Said, if you said what I thought, you've been laughing at me for 3 months.
Speaking of JD.
Go ahead, Wendy.
The only time I always go around bragging about I never had a headache, toothache, earache, stomachache, nothing, but I got down one time bad. Something happened to me, and they had me in the hospital in Atlanta. And you know JD's bad to lie. Well, this is one of JD's lie. They had me in the hospital in Atlanta, and old JD come by to see me. And they had me all sedated. Man, I didn't know what was going on. One time that blood thing had come out of me, and I nearly bled to death before they found out it had come out of me, where they stick it in you. Well, couldn't nobody come in there. My wife could come in there like 3 minutes a day, and my daughter's 3 minutes a day, and Ron 3 minutes a day. So old JD come in there to see me, and he says, you can't go in there to see him. He said, what do you mean I can't go in there to see him? I said, I'm his brother. Said I flew from China or somewhere to see him. So the nurse came in there, and keep in mind, man, I'm sedated. I don't really know what all's happening. And she said, would it be all right? Do you feel all right? I said, yeah. She said, would it be all right if your brother came in here for about 3 minutes? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, when I come here, I didn't have no brother. About that time, old JD walked in by and said, brother!
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Wendy Bagwell and George Johnson, Jay Kess, sure took it out on J.D. Sumner. But coming up next, Brock Spear tells a very funny story of how Rex Nealon forgot the words to the song entitled, Must I Go Empty-Handed? And I'm sure that day Rex felt very empty-handed.
I can remember one that I forgot. Thrasher Brothers and Lefevre's, when Rex was with them. I was in Lubbock, Texas.
Oh.
And Rex was singing a song, a solo on a song that
Must I go empty-handed?
that they had done for months and months and months. And the words absolutely left him. We're right in the middle of his solo. The Thrasher Brothers and all of us was in the back of the auditorium. We gave him a supreme big standing ovation for forgetting the words.
I not only couldn't remember, I sang the whole verse, and all I did was change the tones. I just kept singing.
Did you get a
Ain't
standing
changed his
ovation?
style yet.
We gave him a standing ovation.
I don't remember forgetting any words, but it's kind of on that same order. One time when we hadn't been singing long, and we had that little thing, Pearl Buttons, out, and got a chance to sing in Carnegie Hall on a show they had up there, and it was just me and Geraldine, Little Jan, and my guitar. Little Jan wasn't even picking bass then. So we went up there, and they brought us down for rehearsal. Where our spot was going to be is a thing I think called New York Music and Drama. But where our spot was going to be, we had to do what we were going to do at the show. So the producer or whatever on the stage, he said, why don't we furnish you some more music? I said, no. See,
Don't go with our...
I was afraid they'd play some chords I didn't know. I said, no, that's the only way we can do it. He said, all right. He said, I swear, if my hand up this is true. He said, all right. Wendy said, could I just suggest something? He said, is your guitar a little out of tune? And I wrote it down. I said, Well, I don't know. He said, I believe it's a little out of tune. See, he didn't want me doing the show. So I just took it off. I said, could you tune it? He stood there. He just didn't know what to say. He said, no, I said, I got a musician around here that'll tune it. So he took the guitar. I thought that he meant for me to come with him, but evidently he didn't. But I just followed him to the edge of the curtain, and I heard him tell the musician. So these people on the program tonight said this guitar's out of tune. Said he didn't know about it. Said we need somebody to tune it. Well, the musician said, "Is he in the band?" And the promoter said, "He is the band."
We were in Chicago, Illinois one night, and I sang that. We were in the midst of some quartet changes, as most of us have been. And George and I used to have to take roll calls who was on the bus. But we'd been in Chicago, and Rex was there, and several other groups. And I said, "Well, I'm gonna sing a good song here, Pearly White City." I sung that song, there's about 3 hands clapped.
But the best part of that story is he's leaving part of it out. We'd sit around all that day talking about songs. You know, when you're getting a jam on the stage, some songs will kind of
always
help
work for
pull you out. And Glenn was talking about how the Pearly White City is always no matter what. Like he said, they went and he sang Pearly White City.
And it died.
After they come off the stage, he walked by me and he said, "The last time they'll ever hear Pearly White City."
Bill, this will probably come as a surprise to everyone here, but I wear a hairpiece. I know everybody will know it now.
I can't understand why anybody
Right, the first week after I got this hairpiece in the 50s.
By the way, where did you get that one?
This is not the same one.
Oh, well,
No.
would you give me one of your offices?
Yeah, I did Henry Slaughter. Anyway, the first date we played after that was Macon, Georgia, and all of you have been there with a big horseshoe balcony.
Yeah.
And I have a friend. I got a fan in Macon, Georgia, and he's about 6.5 feet tall and weigh about 300 pounds, much man. And normally when we would go out on the stage like that, after about the 3rd song, well, Hoga would let me sing a song, so. Everything had been real quiet, and we'd sung 4 or 5 songs, and finally this old boy just stood up, and he's just right up here. You can just nearly reach up and shake hands with him. And he kept standing, so everybody in the audience kept looking at him. And so finally Hobie looked up there, and everything got real quiet, and he said, "Brother Hobie, let the kid with the wig sing." Well, I couldn't get mad. He really wanted to hear the kid with the wig sing. So all I knew to do was just stand there and happy.
I remember one night, I think it was Orlando, Florida. We were singing with Florida boys, or it might have been Dixie Echoes. But anyway, what's your piano player's name?
Daryl
I
Stewart.
can't think. Daryl Stewart. Daryl Stewart was doing something.
He's only been there 30 years.
He's new. Introduce him
Hey, would you
tonight.
please edit that part? Daryl's a friend of mine.
Out with the Red Sox.
Yeah. He was doing some of his comedy, you know, and I remember a guy way up the balcony got put out with that, and he hollered down there and said, "Let's sing," and Daryl said immediately, "Well, come on down here."
I got one about a wig.
Let's hear it.
We were working with Doug Oldham in Rock Island, Illinois. And after intermission, we'd get stools and chairs and get out on the stage and kind of do a jam session thing, just do whatever we felt like doing. So there was a lady there, a singing fan, who had 2 or 3 cameras draped around her neck, and she was shooting pictures all night long. So it was during this second half, when things were kind of informal, that she came up to the edge of the stage, and it was a stage about 4 or 5 feet high, came up to the edge of the stage to shoot. Well, Ben pulled the old quartet trick. He went down and got the camera and turned it on himself, right, and took a flash of it. This tickled her so much, she just went down over the stage, and a hairpiece came rolling off right on the stage. Well, that stopped the show there for a while, several minutes, and finally we felt so bad about laughing at her that Ben said to Doug, Doug, this is one of our very good fans. She follows us all around, and she's one of us, and we appreciate her. Doug said, yeah, it looks like one of your people. It's not one of mine.
Well, those were 2 stories about hair pieces from Jay Kess and Brock Spear, but here's a real hair-raising experience that Wendy Bagwell talks about with regard to Wally Fowler.
Now I don't get anything wrong on here, but wasn't it Wally that grabbed the
2 mics.
Yeah, and it was back to electrocuted.
Yeah.
Wally was talking on the stage, and he got 2 mics at the same time, and it was mortally electrocuting.
He got the radio.
One was a radio mic,
one
and
radio
one was a
mic,
PA mic.
and down he went. He just slowly went to the floor, all red and blue and purple, and his face all burned out, and his wig about to and holding on for dear life. And JD, he couldn't turn loose, and everybody was just standing there. Nobody knew what to do. Didn't even know what's happening to it.
They thought he was in the spirit.
Yeah, and so JD runs over and unplugs the whole system there, and immediately Wally gets loose, and he shakes it all off, and then they get him all plugged back in, and he gets back up, and so Wally takes advantage of this miracle and says, I was being mortally electrocuted, and the Lord intervened and released me. Oh, JD went out there and said, I'm the one that unplugged you, Wally.
One of the funniest guys in the business, David Reed.
Oh, yeah, but
Yeah.
David is so... David said the other night, well, he said, I was from a large family but a small house. 17 of us in a 3-room house, and 5 of us in the bed, said 3 of us would sleep this way and 2 would sleep down this way. Said, you can imagine how many of us wet in the bed every night, you know. He said, why, some mornings I'd wake up and there'd be a rainbow in the room. From the moisture.
Wendy Bagwell talks about the electrifying experience of Wally Fowler, and George Johnson talked about the David Reese experience and the crowded bed he had as a young boy. There's a lot of unique personalities in gospel music, and another one that the guys talk about, especially George and Ben and Jake and Rex, have comments on Little Troy Lumpkin and the big song that Little Troy used to sing years ago entitled, Just One Rose Will Do. Here's George Johnson with a comment.
You know, Elmo used to sign him in when he traveled as the 5th man with the Blue Ridge sometimes. Elmo signed him in the hotel as Just a Rose Will Do.
Hoga did that too.
Yeah.
Hoga did that all the time.
One time when he was with the Blue Ridge, Elmo called on him to dismiss.
Yeah.
And then Elmo left the stage and got over there and got to talking to somebody.
Chill Highway Park.
Got to talking to somebody, wasn't paying attention to what was going on behind him. And little Troy was bad to cry. Cried to drop a head.
Oh, yeah.
So Troy walks up to the mic and starts, Dear Father, and he begins to cry. So in a break in the conversation with Elmo and whoever he was talking to in the wings, he heard this silence and thought Troy was through, and he ran out and said, Good night, everybody!
One week it was a statesman's week to go with us.
Right.
And you know, he'd always go out and Hoga would introduce Just One Rose Will Do that you produced for him. And Doyot played the piano for him. So this particular night at Pritchard, Alabama, well, Hoga went out and gave old Troy a fantastic intro. And Doyle played the intro for little Troy to sing. Little Troy just stood there. Finally walked off side and said, "Hobie, the old devil don't want me to sing, just one rose will do." He pushed him back out. Doyle out played the intro. And Troy just stood there. Stood there for a little while, everything just as quiet as could be. He walked off side and said, "Hobie, the old devil just don't want me to sing, just one rose will do."
Indians getting mad.
So Doyle he was getting it. So Hobie just put his arm around little Troy and went back out to the microphone and said, "Little Troy says that the devil doesn't want him to sing, just one rose will do." Said, "Let's all bow our heads." And Hobie prayed a beautiful prayer and asked God to cast the devil out of little Troy so he could sing just one rose will do. And he sung it beautifully and left the stage.
I believe it was in Akron, Ohio, when Troy was traveling with the Statesman. He was talking, getting ready to sing, and he said, "You know, it just seems like down here I just can't seem to hold a regular job." Maybe one of these days when some of these quartet men die and go to heaven, so maybe then I can get a permanent job.
There's a lot of funny stories in gospel music, and George Younts tells a very funny one about a goat that Candy Hemphill was given.
And the promoter gave Candy a little baby goat, and it was the funniest looking goat I ever seen. Of course, I had never seen a baby goat, I don't guess, but the legs was like broomsticks, and when it walked funny, and they put it on the bus. They put it on the bus, and Breeson said, "Well, what are we going to do about the smell?" And Joel said, "Well, he'll just have to get used to it." But we got in Asheville the next day, and Joel had went to the dime store and got a leash for it, you know.
This is fun.
And got a baby bottle for it. And he was walking on that sidewalk, and his little feet was clicking. Click, 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 click. And every once in a while, they'd say, "Bah." And then some old gutter boy leaned up against the back of his car whittling, you know. That thing coming towards him, it's the funniest looking thing I ever seen. It looked like nothing I'd ever seen. But he heard it coming, he stopped whittling, and when he got to him, he looked right at him and said, "Bah." And he got on by, and finally he hollered at Joel. He said, "Hey, what kind of dog is that?" And Joel said, "This ain't no dog, it's a goat." He said, "Well, he talk like a dog." In Delaware the other day, they was having a program for the colored kids 3 to 5 years old. And we had to wait to set up our sound system, and they got through showing them a movie. So I was standing at the door, and they started filing out, and one little beautiful colored girl come by. So I just leaned around and said, "What's your name?" And she said, "Talk right." I said, "I am talking right. What's your name?" She said, "I said talk right." I said, "I am talking right." She said, "You talking crooked."
Like a crook.
Yeah.
Here's a couple of guys that did a lot more laughing than talking during the recording session, but now they have 2 classic stories to tell you. Eldridge Fox of the Kingsmen talks about Jim Hamill and a very harrowing experience that he had in front of a very small crowd. And Herman Harper has a very revealing story to tell you.
All of us, I guess, have a small amount or some ego. We were singing one night. We were singing one night in Greenville, Tennessee.
JD.
One of our,
Nothing, JD? We're talking about
Yeah,
JD
yeah.
again. There you go.
another one of our big days, probably 40, 50 people there on Thursday night. And hot. And all of a sudden I saw Hamill grab his chest. And I thought, my God, something bad wrong here.
Oh, I'm gonna have to sing again. That's what you.
But no, this is when I was singing. And he just couldn't sing. And we all thought he had a heart attack. Everyone on the edge of the stage, and they came running out, and we grabbed him, and they was helping him off the stage. And I really thought he was praying. I kept hearing. I went over and asked the guy I was having off. I said, "What did he say?" He said, "Had 30,000 away cross, and I'm going to die here with 27 people."
What a way to go.
He thought he had a heart attack too, so I'm going to die with 27 people.
What's the story about the bus?
We were booked in Greenville, South Carolina. And we got in there, it's probably on Saturday morning, probably 1 or 2 o'clock, so we just pulled the bus up in front of the hotel. All of us continued sleeping on the bus. About 8 o'clock in the morning, we started getting up, and of course, we all congregated up in the front of the bus, and while somebody would go in and check us in, Willie and I got to scuffling. And we were right up in the well of the bus there, and all of a sudden the door flew open. And Willie and I found ourselves out on the street with nothing but our shorts on. I mean, nothing. And then the bus cranks up.
Oh, no.
And the bus starts moving. Well, Willie grabs hold of the mirror. And he's holding on. See, there's only one mirror on that side, so I didn't know where to go. So they go about half block, and they stop and let him out. Well, I'm standing down in front of that hotel with nothing but my shorts on, right in the middle of Greenville, South Carolina. So I started looking for somewhere to hide. And there's a laundry truck backed up to a wall down there. And so I go down and get in the laundry truck, just knowing the guy's going to come out anytime, And there I'm going to be sitting in there with nothing but my shorts on. 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. And I found this raincoat. I put this raincoat over.
You thought about what you said to him when he opened the door, was going to say?
I didn't know what I was going to say. But the guys, they stay gone, and they stay gone. And they had gone to the police department. And they were looking for Hova's brother, Jack.
Jack Lister.
Jack Lister. He was on the police. They were going to have him come out and arrest me for indecent exposure. So I waited and waited, just knowing that the guy's going to come any time, and get his laundry truck. Well, then I see the bus coming. I said, I'm going to let them ride. I'm going to let them think that I'm gone somewhere. So I let them circle the block a couple of times, And then I run out, They do let me in. But they couldn't find Jack. He wasn't on duty. If he'd have been on duty, I'd have been in jail because they wouldn't have told him a thing, I guarantee
JD, who was doing the recitation when you hit that big bass drum somewhere? Somebody told me about it. They was doing a real
Oh, wait a minute. That was at Monroe, Louisiana, too. Not that particular same night. But JD was singing Sleep in the Deep or something, where you hit that real low note.
I was singing something.
And I found the gong.
Oh, Jake.
And waited for JD to get back. Just as I could see him through the corner of the stage. And just as he started to hit that low note, I hit that thing as hard as I could, and that's all you could hear.
They did the whole auditorium shook.
Yeah, JD walked by Hoga and said, "Put Hess on for a solo." And Hoga said, "No, we got to do something." He put Hess on for a solo. So he introduced me to sing a solo. And when I got about halfway through the song, If God Didn't Care, JD comes out there with a tuba. he walks up right beside me, and I just kept singing. Got to the end of the song, And so he was just going to blast me out of the building with that tuba. And I said, if God didn't care, and he comes right on pitch, just the most perfect tone you ever heard in your life. And people just applauded.
We got an encore.
He was an asset to it.
Helped him out.
First encore you'd ever had, right?
So you got him a standing ovation, huh? Why, you big dummy, you big.
J.D. Sumner may have hit a good note on the tuba when he played for Jake Hess, but he didn't hit a very good note with Hoga Lister one time as they were touring out in California.
The one time we was in California, and we were singing. It was back then when me and Jake pulled out from the Blackwood and Statesman and started the Imperials and Stamps. And me and Jake had a great gospel team going, and we played California. Well, I was trying to talk Polly into bringing. We played there in November, and what the truth of the matter was, we needed some dates in January. January's hard to book.
Yeah.
And my little mind went to working. I said, what you need to do is to bring out. Blackwood's always went in January in the Statesman for their big thing in January. So what you need to do is to bring out all four groups. Because I knew if I could get her to bring out me and Jake, that we'd have some dates in January too. So what you need to do is bring out all four groups. And sold her on it. So had a little Assembly of God preacher this was in November, me and Jake was there. He was MC. He was trying to be funny. So every time he'd get that stage, he'd say, now, don't forget on January the 18th, unless Jesus comes, we're going to have a singing here. And on that singing will be Hoga Lister and the Sensational Statesman, James Blackwood and the Fabulous Blackwood Brothers, Jake Hess and the Imperial, J.D. Sumner and the Stamp. This went on every time he got out. He just thought that was funny as it could be. So he just rode that thing to the hill. So I was last on. So when I got out there and found my spot, I said, now, y'all heard the little Assembly of God preacher. And I said, he's saying to you that unless Jesus comes, there's going to be a singing here on January the 18th. And on that singing is going to be the great Hoga Lister and the Sensational Statesman, James Blackwood and the Fabulous Blackwood Brothers, Jake Hess and the Imperial, and J.D. Sumner and the Stamp. I said, and you and I both know whether Jesus comes or whether he don't, there'll be enough people in this area to fill up this building. I said, irregardless of whether Jesus comes or not, Hoga Lister and the Statesman will be here.
He did. About the J.D. out in Houston. You know, he was doing the recitation.
Doing his recitation?
Yeah.
Well, J.D. did a lot of recitation, like when he was with the Blackwoods. And on I'm Thankful, a song Bill Shaw wrote. J.D. did a recitation where he, in there, he said, Lord, I've always asked you for help, and you've always supplied my every need. One night, Music Hall in Houston, we were doing the song, and J.D. said, Lord said, You've always asked me for my help, and I've always supplied you. That's the last time we did that one.
I'll tell one on Bill
You've
Shaw.
been good to God, ain't you, Jay?
Throw it out.
Hey, Glenn, tell us about the voice instruction that you did at Stamps Baxter School of Music.
Well, in about 1950, I was teaching voice down in Dallas, Texas at Stamps Baxter School of Music. I know that surprises some of you that I ever taught voice, but I did. In 1950, Frank Stamps, they got down to me. They didn't have nobody else left to teach, so I had to. But anyway, one of the funny, my most embarrassing, is one of the most embarrassing things that ever happened to me because, you know, when you had a voice student and we had what's called an all-night singing and broadcast at the close of the school at the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas. And so they called my students, you know, to sing, Brock, you know, you'd be happy about it, you know. And I was tickled to death that she was going to get to sing. And called her up to sing, and instead of singing, she whistled Peace in the Valley. Yeah. That'll brighten your day when you whistle Peace in the Valley.
So you quit teaching voice?
I never. George, tell them about your story in the Holy Land.
Well, we went with Ray Summer. Our first trip to Jerusalem was in '67, I guess, wasn't it? Something like that.
66, I believe.
66. Anyhow, we went there, and I bought one of these beanie caps. You know, it's flat, you know. And on one side, it said,
"This is funny."
Jeru, J-E-R-U. You turned over, on the other side it said Salem. So I was buying things to bring back for the kids. So I was, Danny Coker was standing there, and I'd had it for a day or so, and I was showing Danny how I bought, and I said, you know, there's one thing I don't understand, this little beanie cap here. I said, on one side, it says Jeru, and on the other side, it said Salem. And Danny reached over and got the cap and just spread it out, and when he spread it out, it said, Jeru. How'd you talk about ignorant bass singer?
You didn't know what words meant.
Yeah, I didn't know what words meant. I'm not.
When I first started traveling with the Home Mountain Harmony Quartet, I'd never been anywhere or seen anything or stayed in a hotel or anything else.
This is funny, too.
One of our first trips was to Fort Worth. At the old Texas hotel there. They had rooms in that hotel that was small.
Yes.
It only had a couch. So
$4 a night.
$4 a night. Connor checked me into that room and started looking for a bed. You know, I wondered if you had to sleep on the couch all night. But I looked for that bed, and I never did find a bed in that room. And there's no way I was going to call anybody. Let them know how dumb I was. I couldn't find a bed. I slept on that couch all night long and never did find a bed or a pillow or a blanket or anything. Now, I never told anybody about this for weeks. We was riding down the road one day, and this other guy that was with us, Jim Cole, he'd never been anywhere either. He said, I hate that Texas hotel.
You knew why, didn't you?
But a different reason. I said, well, why do you hate it? He said, well, everything was fine until I took my bath and said, those towels are so thick. There ain't no way you can dry your ears out with it. Of course, he'd used the bath mat.
are a lot of embarrassing moments in gospel music. And coming up for our last two stories on comedy classics and characters, Mr. Les Beasley of the Florida Boys tells a story about one of his good friends, Herman Harper, when he tried to sing How Great Thou Art in a key that's not very befitting to bass singers. And Wendy Bagwell shares with you his most embarrassing story.
That happened to Herman at the first Dove Awards. We had a deal made up where the top 10 songs was going to be sung by individuals. And How Great Thou Art was nominated that year. And Herman was going to do How Great Thou Art. We all had cordless mics. You remember that first Dove Awards thing. And we threw it together the best we could. And our orchestra was
Slaughter.
Henry Slaughter. That's the only orchestra we had.
With his wig.
And he got
My wig.
he got Herman's song in the wrong key. So old Herman started off, said, "Oh Lord my God, when I thought, Lord, this is gonna be good." I'd already feeling for it. He said, "Then sings my soul." And I got it on tape at home.
When the snake thing got hot, all at once, people was wanting the interviews, and boy, old Marvin Norcross was sending me around to television stations. Shoot, nobody ever wanted to talk to me before then, and we were doing. I don't know where the hotel or motel, I guess you call it, is, but it wrapped around kind of like this table is, and in the middle was a big like garden and the swimming pool, and all the people at the singing was down there, and groups was down there, and everybody was around the pools during the day. Radio station called me and said, "We'd like to get an interview." And I said, "Well," I said, "you know, we're in a bus. I don't know how I get." "Oh, no. Said, "We'll send our best interviewer. We send Pat Devine over there and says, our best interviewer, we'll come to you. What room are you in?" I said, 113, whatever I was in. And they said, "We'll send her." I said, "Oh, all right." Boy, I was really feeling important. Didn't even have to. All at once, Geraldine and Jan was out there with all them people and the fans and all down there by the pool. All at once, somebody knocked on my door, and I opened the door, and there stood a girl. It's when miniskirts were popular.
Yeah.
There stood a girl with the least on that I have ever seen in my life. Not only did she have on a miniskirt, everything she had on was mini. It just nothing hardly, and black.
Mini nothing.
And she had, you remember Wallen sack, those little Wallen sack tape recorders look like overnight bags? That's what she had in her hand. She knocked on my door, and I opened that door, and looking out beside her, everybody down in that garden was looking up. And there she stood with that Wallen sack tape recorder. It looked like an overnight bag. And she said, "I'm Pat Devine." I said, "You certainly are." She said, and look, I just stood there like an idiot. I didn't know what to do. Geraldine was walking across, and it's a fact, she'll tell you the same. Geraldine was walking across the thing, and she took a step and just froze right there. Her eyes, I think she was still there when the girl come out. But anyway, she said, "Well, can I come in? I want to get an interview." I said, "Yes, that'll be fine." I said, do you think it would be probably more comfortable down in the garden?" She said, "Oh, no, it's too hot." I said, "Yeah, it's going to get hot in here." So she come in there and sit down. She said, "How you like," before she even undone her tape recorder, she said, "How you like my new dress?" I thought to myself,
Don't tell us what you thought.
"You forgot it, honey." That's the longest time I ever spent anywhere in my life. Now, you know how my girls are. Boy, they're above board. There ain't no foolishness going on with them. And I'm sitting in there. I know what everybody out there's got to be thinking. And I'm sitting in there, and she's interviewing. Right. She's interviewing, and she keeps on and on. And she said, "How long have y'all been in it?" And I told her. She said, "Well, I know as gospel music people go," she said, staying a long time. How long you plan on being in it? I thought, probably 30 more minutes. When she finally said, I'm going, I just said, thank you, Lord, thank you, Lord, thank you, Lord. Get this woman out of here and let me try to get down there. And I knew I couldn't go down there and tell everybody out there that this lady, that wasn't no night bag. That was a walling sack tape recorder. She walked out the door and she took I let her get about 5 steps and I said, thanks man, you Miss Divine for bringing your little walling sack tape recorder and recording me.
I'm glad to hear that one too. I'll use that.
Lord help us.
Tell us about that bass singer.
Yeah, I'll have to stand up to tell you this.
Go ahead.
Texas. The Blue Ridge and the Plainsmen used to travel a lot, and we was in Pasadena outside of Houston, and we did doubles on stage.
Swing that mic around so we can pick you up.
We did doubles on the stage, and when we started our doubles, you know, we was doing One Glad Day My Soul Was. Well, the quartet that would have been on the stage before us that brought us in there had a young bass singer, and he was the toughest thing there. Of course, he thought he was that I'd ever seen. You know, he was just cool. So when we started the doubles on the second half, he thought it was over because they told them they wasn't going to sing no more. But we went out for our doubles, the Blue Ridge and the Plainsmen, and so he was walking by the door, and me and Joe Bob Davis were standing there. He said, he come by the door, and he seen us like that on stage, and he said, well, he took off down the aisle, like this, you know, running down the aisle, going to join us, you know. His orchestra pit. He looking up on stage, he throwed his hand up there and threw his legs up over that orchestra pit, and they had the orchestra pit lowered. And when he looked down, I seen his face go out of sight. Boom. Well, the whole audience was glad. Well, he was determined. He was embarrassed. He was determined, so we were still singing, and finally you seen this on the edge of the stage. This is the edge of the stage. Finally you seen. His face started flipping. He went out of sight again. And he made another attempt, and he got up there, and he got up on the stage, and he got up to where we was, and he stood up beside me and Joe Bob, and we hit the last note of the song, and was leaving the stage, and he's going.
That's a fact with my hand.
Yeah.